Stevens, a skiing weatherman for Snocountry.com, and this is the pattern overview for the western United States. Over the last several weeks, I've given you an idea what's going on with the weather from coast to coast in one of these videos, but they're too long. Let's break it down into the western half of the country and the eastern half of the country. And first of all, I want to let you know that this spot is sponsored by the nice folks at UVEX. And as we go right to the headlines, they're pretty simple right now. The upper ridge that has been dominating the weather in the western part of the country over much of this winter is going to dominate in the near term, although a northern storm track from roughly the Cascades southeastward through the Bitterroots into the northern Rockies and perhaps grazing Colorado. That's where we'll see a little bit of action in terms of fresh snow in the next 10 days to 2 weeks. Overall, though, it is a snoozer of a pattern in the west. If we look at the watches and warnings and alerts that are out from the National Weather Service, we've got some fog in California, but for snow lovers, all we have is some winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories down here in New Mexico from a weakening system. It was a pretty productive one the last couple of days, however. There was a foot of new snow at the Arizona Snow Bowl north of Flagstaff. The Wasatch, since early in the week, got a couple of feet of snow, about 12, 13 inches down at Bryan Head in southern Utah. As this system that we can see on the jet stream map spun southeastward, and it's going in this general direction, then it's going to lift out, but over the next 24 hours it will be weakening as it does that. Therefore, the snowfall amount should start to peter out a little bit as it comes across New Mexico. Nevertheless, the areas in New Mexico should get a freshening amount of snow, generally less than double digits, coming up today and into Thursday, and then that system will depart. Once it departs, and I want to take a wider look before I talk about that, the ridge that is along the west coast extends all the way up into Alaska, and that's effectively blocking Pacific storms from making inroads bodily to the west coast. Occasionally, this low that's out here south of the Aleutians can spin some energy that manages to just crest the ridge and then come down along the east slopes of the Rockies, and that's the sort of mechanism we're looking for any new snow over the next week to 10 days, with the primary beneficiaries, as I said, being the northern ranges up here in Washington and Oregon, Idaho, western Montana, down through Jackson Hole, just a glancing blow into the Wasatch, and then some of the resorts in northern Colorado like Steamboat should pick up some light to moderate snow from time to time in this pattern. If we take a look at the satellite, the visible satellite picture, most of what you're looking down at in this general area in the mountains is snow. There's not much in the way of cloudiness. There are bluebird skies in abundance across the west right now. Again, there's that fog that you can see. It shows up really nicely on a visible satellite shot. But you notice there are no cold air cumulus out here. There are no storm systems peeling ashore. But there is a system that's off this map in the Aleutians, and if we take a look at Friday morning's jet stream, you can see this little bit of a trough making landfall Washington and Oregon, and that thing is going to come over the top of the ridge and then come down southeastward. And if we look at Saturday morning's jet stream map, you notice there's a little bit of cyclonic curvature here from the Tetons down into northern Colorado, and I emphasize a little bit of cyclonic curvature. That's what could produce a light to moderate snow, first in the Cascades. We're talking Thursday night and Friday, then moving into the Bitterroots and into Idaho and the western mountains of Montana Friday into early Saturday, and then during the weekend, I think you'll see this system peel southeastward. It's not very strong, doesn't have a lot of moisture, but it could freshen things up as far south as roughly Interstate 70 in Colorado. We go ahead to Monday morning and notice another little flattening of the ridge taking place as shortwave energy tries to dive southeastward. So next week we could also see a little bit of light snow on primarily that same track. I showed you this a moment ago. That shouldn't be there. So let's go ahead to the 7-day snowfall forecast. And this is courtesy of the folks at Tropical Tidbits. And you can see that the concentration of heavier snow, should it occur, is going to be up here in the northwest into the northern Rockies. And then things kind of wimp out as they come southeastward into the central Rockies. And the snow you see here in the southern Rockies, that's falling today. And after that, I think it's going to be high and dry in the southern Rockies, most of Utah, and the Sierra too. The Sierra could get a little bit of light snow from time to time, but nothing appreciable. The ridge is going to be persistent at least through 10 days in the west. The trough is going to develop in the eastern part of North America. And this ridge is here because of warm water temperatures along the west coast, and it's hard to get rid of those, so I'm afraid that this ridge is going to dominate going forward. However, at about 15 days, we see that the Canadian ensembles are suggesting a bit of a flattening again of the ridge. That doesn't mean a big storm's going to come ashore, but we might be able to get more in the way of Pacific energy into the west and further south in the west, perhaps down to the Sierra, and then tracking eastward into the Wasatch and the Colorado Rockies. But for the time being, the ridge is going to dominate. The Sierra and the Southern Rockies are going to be basically high and dry overall. The Northwest, the Northern Rockies, they've got a shot at occasional rounds of light to moderate snow the next 10 days or so, but I don't see any major pattern changes in the West over the course of the next 2 weeks, which takes us to the end of January. Again, this spot has been sponsored by the folks at UVEX. Thank you very much for listening. We'll have another report for you next Wednesday. I'm Herb Stevens, the skiing weatherman for Snocountry.com.